every day. Good Friday!
And happy spooky Friday. In the spirit of Halloween, we decided to decorate our lighting today in a very spooky way.
And by decided, we mean this is how the lighting is going to be, okay? Great.
All right. As you guys know, Fridays are guest interview days, and I'm really excited to be sharing today's guest with you guys. Some of you may know her, and if you don't know her, you will want to know her. You guys, today we have the pleasure of chatting with Dr. Camera Graham, aka Cami Graham. Cami is an emergency medicine physician and a medical director of a high volume, high acuity emergency department in Sacramento, California. As an emergency medicine physician, she has the honor of caring for patients on some of their worst days. She takes pride in her ability to take care for anyone that walks in the doors 24/7 and 365 days out of the year. Her passion is extending that care is outside the walls of the hospital and into our community to bring care to our most vulnerable population, specifically patients suffering from homelessness and substance use disorders. And while her superpower is taking care of others, up till a year ago, there was one piece missing to the pie. That piece was Cami's ability to take care of herself fully until she joined the inner circle. And today, we're going to be talking about self-care, the importance of taking care of yourself, and how she was able to do it despite of a crazy schedule, with the hopes of inspiring more people to believe that if she can do it, then so can you. So, Cami Graham, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
My cheeks hurt because I'm so excited about what it is that you do and how important it is. And I would like to bring clarity to one thing. How do you pronounce your last name?
Graham, like graham cracker.
I love how Sri says it. I thought that was the thing, but when you got foreigner problems, it's like blueberry.
So how should we call you, Dr. Cami?
Just Cami.
Dr. Graham.
Hey, we're super excited to have you on here. I mean, obviously you do big things and you've done some big things for yourself, which has, been a tremendous gift. Now, one of the biggest things that we always hear with somebody who, wants to get in better shape, lose more weight, be in a healthier, status is, I would, except that I don't have enough time.
Right. What if I didn't have blank?
Right. And up till not long ago, that was you. So just if, to give the audience context, what does a typical day in Cami's life look like?
Wait. Before that one, can I hijack your question? Because
Sure.
I think it's important for people to understand where you came from. So within the last year, since you were working with us, what have you accomplished? Like when you started, what were you hoping to accomplish? What have you accomplished? And then let's talk about how you did that in the midst of everything.
Yeah. So when I first started, the goal was, I think, like everybody's, I wanted to lose weight and be healthier, right? And I think that was my only goal, really. I think when I did my first success call with Sarit, she had all these extra questions, and I was like, well, like, do you just want a number? Like, how many pounds? And I think in the process of it, you gain so much more and you learn so much more. And it's, things, and I had always thought and been frustrated, I think, because I'm a doc, right? I know I have to eat right and exercise, and it should be really easy. And so why can't I just do it? And there's so much more to it. And it's a lot of those tools that you learn about consistency and accountability and things that I thought I had like down pat to make it through kind of all of the training. I figured like I already have those tools. And it's applying them in a different light and putting the focus back on you, which I think is very hard a lot of times. And so at the end, I actually haven't been on a scale in like several months because that's not my goal anymore. My goal is to be healthy and to be stronger and to feel better, but also to put myself in the forefront of health and wellness and taking care of me so that I can do all of the other things that I want to do. So it's been a very different journey than I expected, but
So
I did lose weight.
so what was your initial, like, how much weight did you want to lose?
I wanted to lose 45 pounds,
How much weight did you lose?
40 the last time I checked. So I was
Okay. Yeah.
close.
So,
Yeah.
so you're there. Okay, and that was like several months ago. So you're
Yeah.
there. Okay. So then how long have you maintained it? At least you haven't weighed yourself. It's been how many months?
It's probably been a couple months at this point. I feel the same, and I may have actually put on some more weight just now that I'm doing more kind of weightlifting and my goals have changed. So I think that's why I haven't been as concerned about what my actual number is anymore. It's more of how do I feel? Am I getting stronger? Am I sleeping better? The goals kind of changed from do I like the way that I look in the mirror, which is important, but the number isn't as important anymore.
Right. I just wanted to give context. So when people are like, oh, I can't lose weight because of this or that, I want them to understand like you have lost 40 pounds and your goal changed from weight loss to now I want muscle. So now I'm actually going the opposite direction, but in a very good way. So,
She's
okay.
going up the U shape.
Okay. So now,
Yeah.
ta-da! Okay. So now, sorry, it's a question.
Actually, since we started a trajectory, we're just gonna move. So I remember our first success call. I mean, those are the things that like you can never forget, right? It's like seeing your child like take their first couple of steps. But what was your expectation that it was going to be like in the inner circle and what we were gonna have you do versus what you actually had to do?
So I think I had assumed it was going to be just very regimented. You have to eat this, and this is your things you have to count, and we're gonna like shame you until you do it. Like I didn't expect it to be as much of a like personal growth and a support more than anything. To have people doing the same thing and to see it from different walks of life, to see that everyone has their own struggles and it makes yours less important, right? Like you see that you're not the only one with a very busy schedule and who's dealing with the days that you fall off, and that you don't do what you should be doing, and to know that it's not as regimented as it's made out to be, this very strict calorie in, calorie out, and you have to go run on the treadmill business. I think it was a whole different way of looking at it, and then holding each other accountable without there being guilt or shame, I think was the surprising thing, which was wonderful.
And you didn't have to give up wine.
I didn't have to give up my wine.
I remember on our success call, I was like, okay, if there's one thing that you really love, what's that one thing? And you're like, well, wine. I'm like, great, we're going to keep it. So let's figure out how. Okay, so let's talk about your, like work lifestyle. What does a day in the life look like? Because, of course, everybody thinks that they're busy, which we all are like in this day and age, but I mean you also work around the clock. You're a major leader like in a really big ship. So yeah, if we can just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, mine every week changes quite a bit. I know we've gone over my schedule a few times and tried to work all of this out before. And so I typically still like to work all of the shifts in the ER so that I know what's going on at different times of day. So I will usually work day shifts if I'm working during the day, so either 6 a.m., 9 a.m., 2 p.m., or 5 p.m. And then I usually do my overnights on the weekends, because there's no admin meetings that I have to be up for the next day. I can actually sleep the next day. So each week is a little bit different. I usually work 8 to 10 shifts throughout the month of clinical shifts seeing patients. And then I usually do about 40 hours a week on top of that in the office. And then traveling and all of that for different conferences when we used to be able to travel. So it's a little bit of a roller coaster. And I think that was part of the issue all along, was just finding you do all these other things. You do, like, the intermittent fasting doesn't work, right? Because I don't have any idea when I'm going to be awake or fasting. And so it became harder to also identify, like, how do I get those 8 hours of sleep? And does it really matter what time of the day it is, as long as I'm getting it? And what do I need to do to prioritize that? But to also then clear a little bit of my schedule to make room for things that were more important. But for me, it's kind of all over the place. Usually I'm up pretty early by 5 or 6, unless I had worked the night before. And then I do kind of my quiet morning coffee and emails and getting myself together for the day. And then I usually go into the office, and then I'm there in the afternoon for the crazy part of the day in the ER in case we need help moving patients. But so it's a little all over the place.
So how many hours a day would you say on average you spend working?
Most days on average, probably closer to 10. We do 10-hour shifts for the most part. And then I will usually be in the office for quite a bit. And then once you get home, emails and things like that.
So, but like how many hours?
On average, 10. And now I'm really good at taking days off. So,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
when I do work, it's at least 10 hours. Yeah.
And how many days average a week?
6.
I'm just trying to get context. Like it's
Mhm.
a lot.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. What would you say from your own journey were like some of your biggest takeaways that you're like, whoa, when I like heard this, or when I started applying this, like, big things happened.
I don't remember who it was. It was in the beginning, like a few months into the inner circle, and we were on one of the Monday night calls, and I was out on a walk, like listening, and someone had said, since I started this journey, I'm just more relaxed and patient with people. And I was like, no, I have less patience. Now I have a focus of, is this really an important meeting that is worth me skipping something that I'm going to do for myself? I've said, I have the complete opposite effect. I have much less patience for things that could have been an email, or things that aren't improving the care that we give or moving our ship forward, because there's also other things that are important to me now. And so it made this very clear, like, aha moment of like, no, I'm not more patient with people now. I'm actually more patient with myself, which is what I had been missing the whole time.
More patient with yourself and clearer and more direct in what you spend your time doing, making sure it's efficient.
Yeah.
Right? You're
Yeah.
like, why would we waste time doing something that's not helping our patients, not moving us forward, not like nonsense?
Yeah.
Got it.
Any other things?
I think the accountability, I have taken it a little bit more in a different way. So the accountability for myself and getting through the goals were fine, but I also realized I wasn't holding other people on my team accountable. And that was creating more work and more stress for me, because I was doing a lot of the things that other people are being paid to do. And so I reevaluated all of that in terms of, how do I make more time for myself and for the things that I want to do? And a lot of that, which my assistant director is amazing and had always been telling me this, but I had never really made it click. And to be fair, that wasn't fair to the people on my team, because I was taking away leadership opportunities from them to really grow and be better at what they were doing by just doing it myself. And so instead, now we've created very hard and fast deliverables of what we need every month and who's going to do it. And I'm not micromanaging as much as possible. I'm still learning. But it also creates room for them to grow and to be better at what they're doing. And then it gives me more time to focus on things that I'm interested in, rather than trying to make sure that they're on track.
So by you finding the value of accountability, you started implementing this in your own life.
Yeah. And it's completely changed the site. So when I'm not there, people are willing to just take care of it and manage it, instead of an immediate phone call or text message to me, because they are leaders in the department and they are important people and they can handle all of those things. And I should have let that go quite some time ago. but it's been a good change.
How much of, from your own self-improvement journey, how much of it do you think is actually a matter of leadership?
I think all of it is in different ways. Leadership over myself versus leadership at the site or the people. It's all leadership in some form, right? All of the way that you decide to live your life is some form of being a leader, whether you're a really crappy leader, which we've all had, and which I was being a really crappy leader of myself for a very long time. Or are you, being strong? Are you hitting goals? Are you moving in a positive direction? And it's all accountability and motivation and how you create the outlook for whatever you're doing, whether that's at work or in your personal life.
I wrote down, I love that you asked the leadership question,
Oh,
and I
love
love
that.
your response, because I wrote down, okay, I'm trying to track the steps to make it easy for people in like bullet points. Okay, so we took a deep dive assessment into basically all the aspects of your life. Not, and this doesn't have to be scary, but this is categories of your life, right? This isn't like, oh my God, let me evaluate my entire self and my whole being and everything. It's like, let me look at my schedule and my time, my family, my surroundings, my thought process, my goals, the direction of those goals. Like, let me assess all of this, which is essentially what you guys did in the success call, right? Let me assess all these pieces, my sleep, you know, um, and then you learn how to lead yourself. And if you learn how to lead yourself, how you lead yourself is how you,
Lead everybody.
yes. So then your leadership of you transcended. Is that transcend is up? I don't know. Whatever. You know what I mean? It
Mhm.
got passed on to the people that you had responsibility over as a team. Were able to lead them better because why? You had direction, you had clarity, you had focus, and you had structure. And those are the four things that people are missing. They have no direction. So your focus is just like, oh, everywhere. Then you have no clarity of what you should be doing. So you're just kind of wandering around feeling lost. And then you can't create any structure. So those were the pieces that I broke down for the people watching and like what you have done.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it's shifting too. I think a lot of us do it in different aspects. I was really good and very structured and very clear on what I was doing to get through training too. But that meant doing, 36 and 72-hour calls and eating nothing but Cheetos and Diet Coke from the call room for weeks on end. But it got me to the goal I wanted. It got me where I wanted to be for that part of life. I think it's just restructuring and using those same tools then to figure out where your next step is. I had never pre-residency, like I didn't have a hobby. They like ask you in interviews, like, what do you like to do? And I'm like, I'd like to sleep more than 3 hours this week. Is all. Like that's it. And so to like shift and suddenly have someone ask you, like, well, what do you want to do and what are your goals for yourself? When it's no longer like get to the next level, it's not graduate residency, it's not get a job, it's not make it through fellowship. It's all of a sudden you have to actually have a goal for yourself that's not a career goal. And it was a very weird transition for me. It was great. It's been amazing, but it was very hard in the beginning for me to structure it that way. I think we started with just, you're really good with a calendar and planning things. Let's just plan the hell out of it and then see. And once you see and start making progress, then all the other pieces came in of, oh, who are you as a person? What are your goals like for your life? And then that's, I think, when everything really just
Simple
snowballed.
questions. Simple
Little,
questions.
yeah,
Who are you and what do you want for your life? Simple.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, seasons of life. And the episode, I don't know if you saw it this week, but basically like uncompromised. What are you willing to sacrifice for what it is that you want?
Yeah.
And is that sacrifice worth getting the thing? And that, that's what you're doing when you were eating Cheetos and soda, not sleeping. And you got what you wanted, then you adjust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you, from your own personal experience and your schedule, do you believe that, anybody who's got a crazy schedule, who is actually serious about making a change in their body and in their life, is capable of doing? Why yes or why no?
Yes, I think it has to be a priority though. The priority has to be there. You can schedule whatever you want. And I have done that for years and it never though was focused on my goals for myself. And so I think anyone can do it. I think it takes a lot and it takes a lot of planning, it takes a lot of time. But if it's something that is a priority for you, then it's absolutely doable. And honestly, it wasn't that hard. Once we like really got the goals in mind and we figured out what our game plan was, like that's everything else honestly was not that hard.
Cami, we have a question from the audience.
Yes.
After residency, how long was it until you could get out of the Cheeto and soda habit? I'm just guessing. Maybe Elizabeth is resonating with something.
I would say the first month of Inner Circle. It's a
This
hard
was-
habit. So
Yeah.
that was, I don't know, 4 years after residency. Because you too, like the first few years after residency, it's a whole mind game of you have never been a real adult. You've spent your entire 20s just trying to make it through your next rotation and the next exam and everything else. And then suddenly you're in your 30s. And for me, like you're in your 30s, you're in a new city, you're single, you don't know how to act like a real adult or be social with other people. And so I think a lot of those first few years were just learning to be an adult in society again. And then after that it was, what are my goals and where am I and what do I need to do next?
Do you think that if you had joined the Inner Circle right after that, you would have overcome your Cheeto and soda habit sooner?
I think if that had been my goal, yes, it would. I think it would have happened right away. I think at the time that wasn't my goal. My goal wasn't, I wasn't at a point where I could appreciate myself and appreciate what the possibilities were for myself. Training is hard, and I trained in a pretty rough place where you spend every day just being told how dumb you are and how bad you are and that you're going to kill people. And so like you come out of that and you're just like, oh, hey, I actually am okay at what I do. And patients actually like me and they're not all dying. And then the goals and perspectives change a little bit once that fear, it takes a few years, I think, for you to wash off that fear and get your sea legs and feel comfortable practicing on your own. And so I think I could have joined the Inner Circle. I don't know if it would have been successful though, because it wasn't my priority.
Yeah, you have to be ready.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, like before you decided to join, there were a couple of like other like weight loss things that you have tried, right?
Yeah, I had tried, I feel like everything. So I had my kind of in the context of when this all started, I had taken my new job as a medical director, and about 4 months later is when COVID hit. And so I was trying to be a new director and like lead a group through this pandemic. And by about this time last year, it was a little earlier, I think it was like September, maybe a little bit earlier than that, I just felt like everything was spinning out of control and there was nothing that I had control over. And so that's when I had decided, well, like, I'm at least going to take care of myself. I can't fix anybody else. I can't fix this department. I can't predict what's going to happen. And so I tried a billion things like the intermittent fasting and like the macro counting, all of those things, and they just weren't being successful. And another doc that I knew at the time had actually said, like, you should check out these ENS girls. They're really cool. And I did. And I was in the middle. It was Renee Brown. She was in the Inner Circle for a little bit.
Yeah, I remember a while ago.
Yeah. And so she had said, oh, check them out. Let's do these workouts together because we were going to do the Rise Above. Like, but she's a nocturnist and I'm a day person. So we were trying to figure that out. And I was in the middle of a horrific shift and the phone had rang and it was you, Erin. And you were like, hey, do you want to like do this inner circle? I was like, yes, yes. I need something else to focus on. Yes. She was like, well, we can talk about it. I was like, no, just sign me up. It's fine.
I'm ready.
And
Yeah.
I remember we did your success call. You just went on like a couple days getaway, and we did your success call at the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Erin had called me, and then I was taking my first vacation since the pandemic had started. So it had been forever. And I was so just like off my rocker. And I had just like booked a flight suddenly down to San Diego. And that's when we did our success call. And then I was like, I like paid for hotels and all these like trips just so I could like sleep really nicely for several days. And then we had our success call. And then October 1st was my start.
Yep. And and here we are a year later.
1 year and 21 days later.
So, I'm just curious. So you've been around the block, macros, intermittent fasting, calorie counting, the whole ordeal. What was different about the inner circle?
I think that it was food-wise, it was just that it was easy. It was, I can just eat as much of the green stuff as I want. Like anything, I can have as much of that. Like there wasn't restrictions necessarily, that you made better choices. And that's easier than feeling like I can't have something. And I could have my wine still, my glass of wine before bed. And then that was I'll do your almond milk thing, but don't take my glass of wine. So I think the food part was easy because it wasn't restrictive. It was just, have any of this. I remember asking her like as much as I want, if it's in the green box. And okay.
So what do you mean? What do you mean by green things?
So on your
You
food,
like broccoli?
Like spinach? Ugh.
well, no, like your, I don't remember what it's called, the food guide.
I know what you mean.
The green top. And it's a big old list.
So it's not just the green food, broccoli, spinach, cucumbers. Yeah. It's foods we've categorized as green, which means go.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I think made it easy to do it, just because it's not like, for me, there was no concern that I was going to get hungry right in the middle of a shift, and a lot of it is stuff that I already ate. But I think after that, it was just scheduling and figuring out my game plan, because mine was so all over the place. And I'm not a meal prepper. I don't do leftovers even. I won't eat the same thing 2 days in a row. So for me, it was finding time to actually cook, which I enjoy very much. And it's an hour of my day to like turn on music and like make food and kind of vent a little bit. And so I think the food made it easy. And that there was no, you can't have this. It was, you can have something on the red, but like, that's your bad. Like, that's on you. It's there, where it's at.
I mean, yeah. And it's not that like red means you're not allowed. Right. And that's that whole concept. It's like, yeah. And each person starts very differently. If you're used to eating what we would call, red, like pretty much all day, well, then, okay, let's just try to shift. But yeah.
And it does a good job. The list does a good job of like calling you out on things, like specifically putting sun chips down there. My healthy alternative.
Pringles. Cheetos.
What is it? Tomato and basil sun chips?
Mm-hmm. I know. I was like, oh, come on, girls.
Yeah. So, like as a healthcare provider, I'm curious, like what inspired you to get into, like the healthcare space in the first place?
So for me, it was my little sister. So when I was 5 and she was 3, she had open heart surgery at UCSF. And I remember the whole process with, what my parents went through, what my sister went through. And my parents we don't come from money. My dad worked doing tile. And at the time, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And so for them to just get all the way to San Francisco and like have the money for gas to get down there, to then have her surgery and have somewhere to stay. But I remember it was so important that they made whatever sacrifice they had to get that surgery. And so I knew something was bad. I'm 5, so I didn't know exactly what was going on. But I know she went into this big white room, and these really cute doctors, at least I thought so at the time, taped her back up and taped her chest together. And all of a sudden she was fine. And she was allowed to run, and she was allowed to do all the normal kid stuff. And I just thought it was so cool. And so for a long time, I had wanted to do that. And in high school, I started, one of my teachers was like, well, if that's what you want to do, you should take the EMT class. So I took the EMT class, and then I got hired on as soon as I turned 18 at the fire department. And then I worked for the fire EMS service for 10 years, roughly, kind of in and out. That's how I paid for college and made it through paid tuition. And that's kind of where my love for emergency medicine came from, though, was EMS and fire. And I was like, I never want to be in a clinic ever again.
I love that. I think a bunch of you guys who are on with us live are also in the healthcare industry. If you are, go ahead and drop a heart emoji. You know, we all go. I feel like for anybody who goes into the healthcare industry, like we don't just go because of, you know, like something flashy. We go because there is, you know, like either something that we're running towards that we're passionate about, or something that we are running away from that, you know, was like a big scare. And you know, I think what we are trying to do to help to bridge the gap, that I just think I really hope that we'll be able to achieve this as a society, is at the front line of, you know, just like the healthcare industry in general is not making it a priority to learn how to take care of themselves. And, you know, as somebody who is in the industry, as somebody who's like been on this side and now on this side, like, what do you think is like the importance as far as being in the healthcare industry and, you know, knowing how to take care of yourself fully when you take care of others?
That is a great question.
Yeah. So I think it became really apparent with COVID, which was part of my decision and my journey with you all, was the biggest risk factor of dying from COVID is being obese. You don't have to have anything else. And I've had 22-year-old patients die in front of me, and their only health problem was that they were obese. And it really does take a huge toll. And as healthcare providers, we, especially in like the emergency department, we all have a lot of really bad habits. We're all there because we're a little bit of a reject from like the other parts of medicine, and we're a little bit different. And a lot of healthcare workers have horrific like addiction issues and bad habits, and we learn all of those in our process of getting through training. But if we continue to not take care of ourselves, we won't be there to take care of patients. And I think the issue for me is you're a hypocrite, right? So if you're telling patients you're obese, you're going to die from all of these things, you need to lose weight, you need to be exercising 30 minutes a day. And if you're not doing it yourself and walking the walk, then you're really like, you don't have any credit. And none of us are. And we blame a lot of it on our crazy schedules and the hours that we work. But we tell everybody else, but you can find 30 minutes. And it's true, you can. But we don't always do what we tell our patients to do. Similar, you know, with parents, do as I say, not what I do. And that doesn't really work. And we know that doesn't work. And helping patients be compliant with medications and getting them to eat right and exercise and make changes in their lifestyle so that they don't have to have all of those medications is something that we should be promoting rather than throwing more meds. And it means we have to have a lot of difficult discussions that we probably don't want to have, that might hurt people's feelings, but there are discussions that can really change people's lives, because we know exactly what we need to do, and we need to do that as a medical community first, so that we can show them that even with our schedules, you can do it and you can figure it out.
I love all of that so much. And I feel so hard for all of the healthcare work. Look, like what you said, like it could hurt feelings, right? Like healthcare workers, like you can't do as I say, not as I do. and to be fully honest, I want to ask a rhetorical question to you and to anybody listening. But if Sarit and I were overweight, would you trust that we could help you lose weight? It's rhetorical, but I know the answer. And it's because I want to see that you understand. Like, I want to see that you're actually doing what you're telling me to do, because hypocrisy is something that makes us like run away from that person, right? So it's because of trust. How can I trust you if you're telling me to do something you're not doing? Now there's this like boundary that like gets built, because or this barrier that gets built, because now I can't trust you. And it might be all subconscious, but it's like I want to help every single healthcare worker, because not only is it on the surface of like, yeah, well, you don't do what you're telling me to do, um, but it's also internally, every single one of those people knows, and every single one thinks about it and feels it, because we've helped many of them. I lived with a nurse who was, overweight, diabetic for a while, and it ate her alive. That she's like, I don't know why I can't. And even myself as a personal trainer, struggling. And people may not have been able to really tell much on the outside, but because I was struggling with my own like disordered patterns of eating and like obsessiveness. I'm trying to teach somebody to do something that I'm not. We feel it, and it eats us alive from the inside. And so nobody should live that way. And there's so much healing that can come from food as medicine before medicine.
Mhm.
Not that there is not a time and a place for medicine, but just that oftentimes it gets put in front of what's more important and more impactful. So I
Yeah. Well, medicine's easy, right? You can prescribe something that's really easy. But teaching someone how to change their lifestyle and why it's important is so much more difficult. I've got a really great friend that is a family med doc who does plant-based medicine, but the way that she's doing it is she's the one every Saturday, I think it is, it's a walk with the doc. And so anyone from her practice can go walk with her. She does runs, so she's not just saying, oh, you should eat a lot of plants, right? It's showing you why and doing it in her own life. And I think that's how we make medicine better,
Yeah.
because it's too easy to prescribe. We've got all these drugs that put band-aids on a lot of things, and there is very much for some people a place and time, and that might be the bridge while you're working on the other things. But if you don't ever fix that underlying issue, then you're just putting a band-aid on something that's gonna just explode eventually.
Very well said. Very well said.
Knowing what I'm just curious, being in the industry and knowing what you know and being in the leadership position, where do you foresee the healthcare industry heading over the next couple of decades?
I think there's a lot of big changes. I think a lot of care is going to switch to meeting patients where they are. So not necessarily being inside the walls of the hospital. I think there's going to be a lot more care given in your home. A lot of things that you don't need to be admitted to the hospital for. I think a lot of care is going to become a little bit virtual, but that expands the ability and the access to specialists that you wouldn't otherwise be able to see. But I think there is a big movement, especially in a lot of primary care, at least out here in California, of switching to diet and exercise and a plant-based diet, and switching to preventative medicine rather than reactionary medicine, which is what we do now.
Yeah.
And putting that onus on the providers, that this is your responsibility. You can't just throw narcotics for everything. You can't just throw meds at everything. You have to have some onus of helping patients do the right thing and be healthier. But I think preventative medicine and moving care outside of the walls and meeting patients where they are is where we're going to see healthcare go in the next few years.
Preventative medicine versus reactive medicine. I love that. I've never heard that before. So what do you think is going to happen to healthcare providers who, considering those changes, who are, just continuing to practice that reactive medicine, and who, just you can tell that they don't practice what they preach? What do you think that that's going to have an impact on their career before the health consequences come into play?
I do. I think we see it already, especially now with social media, right? You look to see who your doctor is and what people say about them before you go to see them. There's health grades online. You can look up at hospitals, things like that. But I think a lot more patients are looking to find a doc that's spending time with them and sitting down with them and actually going over what their life goals are and what are their health goals, and practicing a lot more preventative medicine. And I think patients are wanting that, especially the younger generation that's now getting into their 20s and 30s and accessing primary care for some of the first times. A lot of us don't go to the doctor in our 20s, right? And so I think a lot of that will change, and patients will gravitate towards physicians and providers who are doing exactly that and tailoring medicine to help them be healthier rather than just throwing a lot of meds. And gone are really the days where you had your GP from the time you were a kid and they took care of you for your entire lifetime. That relationship we've really seen is gone. But it allows people then to also choose a provider that really fits them rather than just the person in town that saw their parents, and to align their goals for their health with everything else in their life. And then accessing a different group, where you have therapy and psychiatry if you need it, so that you can work on all the other pieces that play into your health.
When you say medicine, I think about like pills and things, right? Medicine. So I'm like stuck on the last question. When you say preventative medicine versus reactive medicine, what is because I'm thinking like, well, why would I want to take a pill to prevent something? But so what's the medicine that you're talking about that is
So preventative medicine, as a specialty, is focused on making healthy lifestyle choices. It's not really actually about prescribing any medications necessarily. It's more about interacting with patients earlier in their life so that you can help them make those choices. So talking about obesity early while they're, in their 20s, and they can really make some effective changes and make plans for their future. And I think preventative medicine is a beautiful specialty that's been blossoming quite a bit more, and very heavily weighed in all of the training for family med and internal medicine doctors now, is how do we approach patients, have tough conversations, but do it in a way that we're not making them angry, where it's coming from a place of love, where we just want you to be healthy. And they've shown, and a lot of insurance companies now are even building that into your reimbursement. Are you doing preventative medicine? Are you talking about not smoking? Are you talking about drugs and alcohol? Are you talking about all of these things? And if you're not, then we're not going to pay you for what you're giving our patients. And I think it's important to focus on that rather than, okay, well, now you've had a heart attack or now you've had a stroke. Now we're going to have to put you on a lot of medications, but now you're also disabled often to a point that you really can't go out for a jog, right? So you're now behind the ball even farther. And that's a lot of times when patients will decide suddenly, oh, I've got to get healthy, is after something like that. Whereas preventative medicine is talking about all of those things and the risk factors of, if you continue to be obese, you are at risk of all of these things. Whereas those discussions weren't always had in the past. It was, well, your blood pressure's high, here's your pill for it. Instead of saying, we want you back every week for a blood pressure check. And in the meantime, these are the things I need you to do. And if you do those things, we may not have to start a medication at all.
Yeah, that's what I had a feeling of. Preventative medicine is based. Reactionary medicine is pill based or some form of prescription.
Yeah.
For anybody who's in the healthcare industry and they're like, man, you know what, Cami, you're inspiring me. Like, if there was one thing that they can do, what would that one thing be?
I think the biggest thing for me has been getting out in the community and being with patient populations that are vulnerable, who really don't have to watch people who have nothing make miracles happen every single day. When they put food on their table, when they are able to find shelter, when they're able to overcome things like drug and alcohol abuse. I think the best way to really get into healthcare is to start with the most vulnerable populations that need us the most. When you talk about VIPs in the hospital, to me, that's our homeless patients who need us. It's not the CEO's cousin that's in town that needs their blood work checked, right? The VIPs are the people who really are vulnerable and who, because of behavioral health issues, mental health issues, can't necessarily do things the way that we can. But if you see those patients and how hard they work and what they're really struggling against, it gives you a little bit of a broader view of society and of the people that we serve. And if those are the people you're here to serve, then you will take really good care of everybody. But if you take a very well-to-do, wealthy population, and that's where you start your career in medicine, then you're never going to be able to have the empathy that you need to care for people on their worst day, because they don't always have bad days. They may have bad things happen. But I think starting with that population, and that's also for me the most fulfilling population. It doesn't take a lot to help them, but you can make huge differences in people's lives. And those are the people that then go on to just work their asses off, and they're thankful and they make huge waves and they do huge things in their lives if you can help them. Whereas everybody else, it's kind of like, oh, well, thanks.
Yeah, I can see that. There's more gratitude that comes when you get out of the deep, dark, bottomless pit. There's a lot more gratitude that happens and help that you want to then pass on. I can see from that.
My last question for you is, who would you recommend the Inner Circle to, knowing your journey and what you've seen from it and the results that you got?
Everyone. And I think the Inner Circle, and it's not necessarily about weight loss. That's a component of it, of course, but it's more about personal growth. And I think we can all, and like I've told you before, there's no guarantee that I won't be back in the Inner Circle, depending on how life changes and how goals change and things like that, because it is more of a reset of where are you and where do you really want to be, and how are other people doing it, and how are you as a community inspiring each other. And so I think there's, even if you are in the best shape of your life, you still have something you can work on, whether that's, your attitude, your positivity, how you see the world, what you want to achieve, what kind of leader you are. There's always something that you can focus on, and it's not necessarily weight loss. That comes along, and I think that's probably honestly the easiest part of the whole thing. It's the rest of the mind work that you beat yourself up about and see the biggest change, I think.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. For your body to change, you need to change first. Man, I mean, we can talk to you forever. We know that you have a lot going on and you have a schedule to get to. I just want to thank you for your time. I know how valuable it is. And I also want to thank you for, what you do each and every single day, because, we have our opinions about generally what medicine is like versus what it should be. And you're really a living testimony of that. So, thank you for being the leader that you are, and thank you for being unapologetic with regards to what it is that you stand for, because it is very rare. So, and most importantly, thank you for your trust in us. Like, this relationship is beautiful.
You guys are amazing. Thank you guys. You guys have made such huge differences, and I love everything that you guys are doing. I appreciate you having me on. It's good to see you all.
Absolutely. It is great to see you. Have a beautiful weekend and safe travels this weekend as well.
Thank you. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Good to see you all.